Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. Here we are. It's the end of summer. School started, and we're back at it. So speaking of school, there's a new business that's going to open up at the center of town, and it's called Maple and Main. It's run by the RISE program. What can you tell us about that?
It's a great opportunity and expansion of our 18 to 22 program, where we provide ongoing educational to support to some students at that age, and it will really give them both educational and real world experience in running a retail shop. And it brings vibrancy to the town center, right? We need retail and reasons for people to walk and otherwise collaborate in the town center. And this is a great new business that will open that happens to be run by the Shrewsbury Public Schools. So it's more than a win-win.
And it's similar to one that's already been established in Westboro and has been very successful.
Yeah.
So they're not the first ones out of the gate doing this, but at least they have people that they can reach out to get good advice. And hopefully it'll help them avoid some of the bumps in the beginning.
Right. This is, just a great opportunity to, again, that was, the longtime pharmacy, and they closed up shop, and immediately this opportunity opened up.
And the new windows on the building open it up. It looks nice. It looks very nice. So I wish them well. Now, Northborough has issues with their Hopbrook and flood control.
Mm-hmm.
And the state is doing work there. Is that work done?
I don't think it's officially completed yet. They're basically removing the dam.
And it impacts Shrewsbury.
It does. There's several properties, just a few actually, properties within Shrewsbury that are close to the dam. Northborough owns the piece of property in town where the dam is, and
where is it?
It's in the kind of the northwest corner of town, up by 290. So the
northeast corner?
Yeah, northeast. Did I say west? Sorry. It actually runs under 290.
Oh, okay.
Most of the immediately surrounding area that will have some impact from the dam not being there, we don't have like waterfront property issues. There's a couple of Shrewsbury residents that abut, but their properties, their homes really aren't oriented towards the water. So it's not like a recreational water body, but they're undergoing that. It's pretty common in the state these days to be removing these flood control dams and providing other mitigation measures when the opportunity presents itself. So this is what's happening up there.
It's interesting you talked about flood control. I grew up. I was a young child living on the lake when there was a flood.
Okay.
And it flooded my neighborhood, and we actually got out. We had to get out of we had to evacuate, and the road collapsed.
Oh, wow.
It was a hill, and when we went back, you could see all the fish in the lake, and it was as a kid, it was fun because we could walk through the puddles, but it was very dangerous at the time, and that was it seemed like the beginning of when there was a lot of flood control related to the lake, related to the brook, connecting to the lake, and how it impacted different neighborhoods. I remember living on Melvin Ave, and at the end of Melvin Ave, there's part of the brook, and one of the older women had a garden, and her garden used to flood, and she looked forward to the flood because it helped her garden at the right time in the summer.
Yeah.
And then there was flood control, which totally changed that whole area, which was a big improvement. But it's amazing how things evolve. You're talking about now they're taking out and putting in new measures. So bigger and better things,
I guess,
as time goes on. And then another issue or change will be Selco is looking at purchasing Patrick Motors.
Yep. So actually, update, that deal is not going to move forward.
Oh.
We found out earlier this week that the owners of the property, I believe it is the Patrick family, have taken the property off the market.
Oh.
So we won't have that opportunity. So It was a project that, as it was conceived, I think provided a lot of benefits to the town. Now, there's a lot of conversation that would have been had and we would need to have, because I know a lot of people understand the benefits of having Selco and the schools and the town manager, everyone located within the town hall, the benefits that that brings. And that's certainly true. But this opportunity would have provided a lot of downstream benefits that would have saved us a lot on facility capital expenses, including at the town hall and with the DPW and things like that. That is one of the reasons that I was supporting it, at the conceptual level where we were. But unfortunately, it was taken off the table. So
My first reaction was you were ripping out the blueprints and trying to figure out how you could use that space, which would have
Absolutely.
eliminated the need for an addition for quite a few years.
That's correct.
So it's off the table.
Yeah. The other part
Will
of
they
that,
continue to look?
yeah. So their facility needs and the town, school, our collective facility needs still remain. Donna, like when we started the police station project, it was a municipal campus project. The town hall was in the crosshairs and investigated and in need of renovation. We're pushing 25 years since any work has been done from a renovation standpoint on the building. I was in my research for that other project. I went back and looked. So in 1997, that's when that project, the town hall, was expanded. Our population was 27,100. And I looked at the updated census data for 2022, 39,805. So we're less than 200 people away from 40,000 population. And of course, incrementally, maybe not at the same percentage or pace, but incrementally, town staff has grown, Selco's services have grown.
It's all relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. So
The needs change.
yeah.
You need people to cover the population.
Yeah, so the needs there, the building again hasn't seen any, even refurbishment in the last 25 years. DPW had some work done, of course. One of the downstream benefits to that project that we were pursuing is that we've long since needed to improve facilities on South Street where water and sewer garage is. Actually, I remember my first meeting with Bob Tzeski when I came on board in 2017. He laid out a set of plans of conceptual drawings to reconstruct the water and sewer garage. And I was like, I'm not in favor of this until we look at highway and water and sewer and everything together that's on that site. We were going to have the opportunity to be able to take over Municipal Drive, where Selco is right now, and use that for more than likely DPW purposes, which would have alleviated the need to reconstruct a new building for water.
So it would have
and sewer.
saved us
Yeah.
not only at Town Hall, but Municipal Drive
Yeah.
or South Street.
Yeah, Chris Roy threw out a number in the Community Advocate of 30 or $40 million in capital cost avoidance, and that's a number that we jointly worked on. That's a real number in comparison to the other approach, which is where they are building a new building on Municipal Drive. So we need to look at some other alternatives. This gives us the opportunity to do that, so we welcome that opportunity to maybe build a partnership even greater with regards to facility needs, both office space and field or construction yard space.
So more work to be done,
Yep.
but knowing that they are looking at a lot of options and what
Yeah.
could be the best opportunity.
Yeah, and the other part of this whole opportunity was it wasn't going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
Because the facility on South Street, which just my opinion, I have no other knowledge of than what I've said to you that they've taken it off the market. The facility on South Street hasn't even started for Patrick, where they're
Right.
going to move to.
Right.
So we know even the construction of a building like the police station takes 2.5 years. So while we needed to make a decision to acquire the property sooner rather than later, at least when it's on the market, we knew that if Selco moved out of the town hall in 2.5 years, that only at that point could we
You
start
still had to
anything.
wait.
Yeah, and
Still time.
I was thinking more like 4 or 5 years before we would be ready to do any renovations or things like that at the town hall or on Municipal Drive, because Selco wasn't even moving out for 2.5, 3 years. So we'll see what happens now. But I mean, I think it's been pretty well known since we started the police and municipal campus project that we have some needs. We've cannibalized the old selectmen's room. We've cannibalized the old copy room in the town hall. There's just nowhere else to go to create the space that we need for the employees.
And is the school department looking at more needs for other schools?
So the school department from an administrative standpoint, their needs have remained the same, trying to get special education operations and all that stuff into the town hall if we do the expansion. When it comes to educational space, they have been invited into the second step of the MSBA's process to look a little deeper at the high school to meet that overcrowding need. And
can you believe it that
Yep.
There's that need? It took us at least 10 years to get people to believe that they needed to build a high school.
Mm-hmm.
We get the high school built it's already been 20 years. Is it 20
More
years?
than, yeah. It's well over 22 years.
And we're
or so.
looking at expanding because that's the way it is. That's life.
Yeah. The debt's completely satisfied on the high school at this point, and I mean, I think even our population projections for the school, which are showing a plateau as far as students, things like that, still shows that regardless of, even if there's a little bit of a downward trend, we'll still be overcrowded at the high school to be able to provide the right space.
And you know how when we looked at, for example, the police station, you look at how will this help us for the next 50 years?
Mm-hmm.
Will they do that when they do renovations or additions at the high school, that they look not just, this is what we need for now, we need to look so that we have a bigger buffer than a 20-year time period.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that.
And the reason they probably didn't at the time was because we were lucky to get people to agree to it, let alone be futuristic with it. We were just trying to, meet the needs at the time.
Going back to that population trend, though, when the 2020 census came out, the population was 38,825, and now 2 years later we have 1,500 more residents according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So I know the interim censuses are estimates, but Edgemere, the apartments at Edgemere have opened, and continues to be other smaller developments, and we have a lot in the pipeline: Cypress and Stony Hill and
Cypress is for seniors.
That's correct. Yeah.
Before people get nervous. And what's Stony Hill?
So the Pointed Hills Farms, that's the 40B project. That's
so when it's 40B, we're sort of locked in.
Yeah, we're locked in. We
don't have an
to
option.
do that. Yeah. So this is 92 units. It was a much larger conceived project, and they scaled it back a couple of years. But that's nearing permitting, and Wind Development is the company that's building that. And then they have already been into the select board, but on September 12th, I think we're at a point now where I can recommend the select board enter into a development agreement and approve a local initiative program, or a LIP program, which is the friendly 40B, where we have some control, right? Like we still can't prevent a project, but we always find that opportunity to negotiate where we can. With Pulte Homes, that's the Green Street project, you may remember, 33 through 69 Green Street. And that's 300 for sale condo units.
Wow.
So 75 of them will be affordable, but it's a 300 unit development there.
Do you think when builders come into the town and they say, for example, we want 100 apartments, do you think they already have the downscale plan and they're just rattling our cage at 100, and then we're the good guys and we only want 75? Well, they only wanted 75 to begin with, but they're playing with us? Because it seems like everybody's scaling down, which is good.
Yeah, I think there's some strategy related to that. Yeah. I mean, we often see developers come in and say, your zoning would allow us to do 100, but we're willing to do 75. And I mean, I think that's appropriate. It keeps resources But Shrewsbury continues to be a really attractive place to live. It came out.
Do you think that's
over the
because of the
weekend?
town manager?
No. So, Realtor.com, I don't know if you saw this, came out last weekend that Shrewsbury is the 22nd hottest zip code in the country as far as real estate trends and strength. So out of the whole country, 01545 is the 22nd most favorable zip code as far as home sales and prices and shortest days on the market.
Wow.
So we happen to be the fourth highest community in Massachusetts. There's 4 communities in Massachusetts that are in the top 25. We're 22nd. Andover's 4th in the country. So it's just amazing how strong
In the country.
residential real estate market is in Massachusetts and right here in Shrewsbury. So a lot of interest, a lot of strength in the marketplace, despite those high prices. We all know we can't believe the numbers that we see day in, day out on what people are willing to pay for
True.
properties, and that bears itself out in that nationwide survey. So,
And of course, I'm very competitive, so I'm thinking, we're only 22.
well, there's how many? There's well over 15,000 municipalities in the country. So I think we're in the top.
And I don't. And there's good news to being there, and then there's bad news to them announcing it because it
think
just
it-
brings more
yeah,
people to the town. I don't think we talked about Selco reaching their 5-year agreement. Is it a 5-year agreement with the town? The contract?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a while since that happened, but we haven't talked about it. What does that actually mean for the town?
So, in order for any entity to be able to provide cable TV services, they have to have a license through the select board. And Selco has been the cable provider since day one. Cable was available in the early 80s. And so this is a 5-year extension. There's a couple things actually to that. So this is the first 5-year extension. They've all been 10 years. So you can do 15 for the first license and then 10-year extension. So we did a 5-year extension because there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. Like,
Right.
will there be cable? And it really is cable. It's not the streaming service. So like Hulu doesn't have to play the town, or YouTube TV doesn't have to have a franchise license. It's that more traditional cable service where they actually have physical infrastructure within the community. So it was I think a good partnership in the deal. 5% of the cable subscription fees will come in to fund Shrewsbury Media Connection, which we benefit from, of course, in so many ways as the local government and the community. So it locks that in for 5 years. Everyone also may have heard that Charter Communications, Spectrum, has actually applied for a cable franchise license in town as well.
Ugh.
So
I say that only because I've had to deal with them with other relatives and working with them. And we have in Shrewsbury, until you have to deal with the different ones in Florida or wherever you are, we have no idea how lucky we are and how easy it is to navigate our system compared to those other bigger systems. And you're on hold for 25 minutes and then you get someone who disconnects you and you got to start over again. I mean, it's just an absolute nightmare, and you don't have that in Shrewsbury. And so you really need to experience that to appreciate how great it is for us to have our own municipal system.
yeah, so we're reviewing that license application. It's really the licensing process generally favors the applicant. Obviously, Charter has a very sound track record of being able to provide cable TV services throughout the country, throughout the Northeast. But we're reviewing that license application process right now. The biggest question for me is, how do they get that service to residents? They'd have to have their own infrastructure. So there's a whole lot of subsequent agreements that would have to be put in
You have to
place.
go to a store in a shopping area and take a number and wait in line for a half hour or more just to be waited on. I mean, that alone is enough to make you crazy. And when you try to discontinue something, it's just not user friendly whatsoever.
Yep.
So we just need to appreciate what we have for as long as we can hold on to
And
it.
I'm even talking about that physical infrastructure on the poles. Like they would need
Yeah.
to run their own cable lines or IT or fiber, I guess,
Yeah.
to provide that type of service. So
So every time we turn around, it's raining, and every time we turn around, the ponds and lake are polluted. And it's E. coli, and it's all weather driven, and the heat and the rain and the weeds growing and all that's related to that. We really had an excess of that this summer compared to other summers. Usually you might hear of a random
Yeah.
spot in town, but this was extreme.
yeah, we've been plagued with it. It's funny. Remember last summer we had hardly any rain,
Yeah.
and so we didn't deal with it at all. But it's all the runoff, and especially when we have those really heavy downpours that kind of overwhelm our stormwater systems. I mean, along with those lakes and pond closures for contamination, we've had probably more resident inquiries and complaints and concerns about, this catch basin's over flooding and this road's flooded. And there is an upward limit to the capacity of our stormwater systems. And when it literally rains, an inch of rain in an hour, our systems aren't designed for that at this point in time. And it's a question that I have because, we design to a 50-year storm or a 100-year storm, right? And those are all very sound-based models and analysis, but we're obviously experiencing those much more frequently now.
Yeah. And as we complain about this, there's flooding in Vermont that was just so extreme and terrible. But is there anything we can do in advance or looking forward, looking ahead?
Yeah, it's part of the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan, and it's part of the MVP, the Municipal Vulnerability Program that we have been participating in to try to identify the pinch points. An example where we have a lot of stormwater piping and it may go from a 12-inch pipe down to a 6-inch pipe back up to a 12-inch pipe. Like, how do we get that 6-inch pipe out of there so there's not that pinch point that causes backups and overflows and street flooding? But it's just an unbelievable amount of infrastructure that we have to consider and think about upgrading. We have something like 3,000 catch basins that we own in town.
Have we had more water breaks this year too, or is it just coincidental?
No, I think we've had a normal number of water main breaks this year. For the system of our size, nothing really too alarming.
When you talk about storm drains, Worcester has a sign that they're putting on their storm drains telling people not to dump in the storm drain because it leads to the lake or to their waterway. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we should be doing in town?
Same for us, yeah.
Because it's disgusting to think about people putting things down the storm drain and how dangerous that is for everybody.
It is, yeah.
I mean, they're doing it because they think they're saving money, because that's what it really comes down to. But yet they're contaminating our water system.
Right.
And speaking of the lake, how's the lake activity been with, there's been more police patrolling. Are the residents still frustrated with people breaking the rules on the lake? Or is it under better control?
Well, from my perspective, and that doesn't mean it's reality across the board, I've received less complaints this year. We have tried to continue our patrol presence. The weather has helped to some extent.
Yeah.
It's always will be a work in progress. We've had some large parties and events that shouldn't be happening on parks and town land along the lake. Some incidents. There was actually a incident overnight, where someone reported their jet skis were just stolen, and 2 of our officers took the police boat out and were able to apprehend after a pretty significant struggle.
Really?
Including one of the officers' taser being compromised or taken over by the suspect. So thanks to those 2 police officers who went out to, protect private property and recover those, and then got into a struggle with an individual who's was able to be arrested and taken into custody. So yeah, but I mean, again, from my perspective, there's been, less folks reaching out to me this summer. So hopefully that's the reality on the lake. But I think, we'll continue those police patrols. The police department got a jet ski with ARPA funds to allow them to get into areas of the lake that they aren't able to access with their boat, like under the Stringer Dam, under Route 20 over there.
Right.
So we're in a better spot as far as being able to serve the
Wow.
lake.
And speaking of all this wet, then that brings more mosquitoes. And we've had mosquito spraying. And then you talk about ticks and rats and cats and elephants. I mean, the mosquitoes is related to the climate.
Sure.
And so are the ticks. The rats, what's that?
I mean, I think it's somewhat related to the climate as well. Like so 2 summers ago when we had a rainy summer, we noticed that, as our swamps and wetlands were kind of overfilled, then rats seemed to make their way into some adjacent residential neighborhoods.
Oh,
But they haven't seemed to have left.
yeah.
So it's an ongoing issue. It's not completely widespread, but there's enough that, the Board of Health is definitely on top of it. It's something that I get updates on at least once a month from them on what they're doing and how they're working with homeowners and private exterminators to try to lessen or eradicate the problem. But yeah, it's interesting on the ticks and mosquito side of things with all the extra water.
Which leads me to your relationship with the Board of Health, because it's now been for a while in Worcester, and we've been getting increased service as a result of that. So you communicate with them depending upon the issue, and then at a minimum once a month. How does that work?
Oh yeah. So we're in conversations, communications with the director of health and his staff at the city several times a week at least. So we still have our own lead departmental assistant, Carrie Stockwell, in the Board of Health, who's in the town hall. The Shrewsbury Board of Health, 3 members who set the policy, are still appointed by me. So we still have a lot of local control and really good communications with the city of Worcester and their staff. And I do have to say, like many other public health agencies, there was a max exodus after COVID because people were just worn out. Like, I'm not doing public health anymore, just like a lot of the medical field. But we're back to full staffing now. And we had a great meeting this morning with Human Services Leadership Team, which includes the Board of Health, and thinking about food insecurity and opioid use of those funds. And it was a really good meeting, and it's great to have them back up and fully operational.
And do you receive a lot of reports and data from?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they help us. I mean, they're the ones that are doing the public, the health inspections for restaurants, and they're assisting with the emergency shelter and making sure that those conditions are sanitary, and they deal with nuisance complaints. But we have a lot of data, anywhere from communicable disease to restaurant conditions that come in through the Board of Health. Yeah.
Speaking of health, one thing's leading to another here. It seems like more people are walking or trying to walk. And you have all that traffic and everybody's in a hurry, so everybody's driving so fast. Is there a new sidewalk plan? Or because we always put off, it's in the budget, and then that's the first thing you grab is the sidewalk money when you need to fund something else. Do you have a more aggressive sidewalk plan?
So I think 2 thoughts. From a dollar standpoint, yes. So the select board put $500,000 in place for sidewalk improvements with ARPA funds. So that's probably the biggest infusion maybe ever for sidewalk dedicated funds in town. And then we just released earlier this week, and we're in the nearing the final phases of the draft for the town center multimodal study. And that's really a pedestrian, non-vehicular oriented study. We obviously wanted to understand, is there anything that we can do with the trucks? How can we provide a better flow of traffic through the congested town center? But there is a lot of focus on sidewalks. The solution that has come forward with this complete streets concept and program that's embraced from the feds down to local government is what they call shared use or multi-use path. So it's pretty much a big sidewalk, ranges anywhere. So a traditional sidewalk may be 48 inches wide, 4 feet wide. These sidewalks are up to 10 feet wide. And a really good example of that, of course you need land to do it, is along Route 20 in front of Edgemere. You'll notice there's a traditional sidewalk and a shared use path. That gives bicyclists the ability to be off the road and pass pedestrians. And it's a suggestion that's recommended in the draft that I've seen for the town center multimodal district. My concern with it is because it's a mature residential area as well, immediately outside. Can we really afford to take that much? Not afford, but is it appropriate to have such a wide path in a residential neighborhood where it's taking up people's front lawns? So that seems to be a solution everyone's focusing on. And we actually also received a $492,000 grant to extend sidewalks through the Complete Street program. The grant came in from the state up North Quinsigamond. So where they end right now, they'll continue the whole way up to Main Street. So it's a big project. We'll have to do utility relocations and things like that. But getting $492,000 from the state to take that on.
I think Old Mill Road, Prospect Street, parts of Maple Ave. I mean, just so many different spots that Harrington Ave, people can't walk because the cars are just coming at us. My mind's going in so many different directions. I'll stick with Maple Ave for a while. Speed. People drive so fast on Maple Ave now, and it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, which to me doesn't make sense. And I know when you do a traffic study, it's the average speed and blah, 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 but there's now more playground on Maple Ave. There's more curb cuts because, for example, the police station, so you have more, you have a larger number of emergency vehicles coming in. Is there a way, and the speed limit is 20 miles an hour as you get closer to the center of town, but people don't even realize the speed limit goes down to 20. And there's so much chaos now, and you have the kids getting out of school, more kids walk to the library, not just on release time days. I mean, yesterday we were laughing at how many kids were just walking.
Every day. Every day.
And so it's good that they're walking, it's good that they're, on the sidewalks, but is there a way we can justify decreasing the speed on Maple Ave?
I mean, I think the only option would be moving to the thickly settled designation, which it is. Which probably meets the criteria because of the density of the residential neighborhood. So that would be probably the only option because I think the other part of that Complete Streets program is not giving motor vehicles kind of the sole use of that strip of asphalt, right? It's pushing the motor vehicles towards the center and getting a bike lane and a buffer between a bike lane and the sidewalk and the curb, which the more narrow the lane, right, the slower people drive because
hopefully, right.
Whenever you're on a wide open highway, you feel comfortable.
Right.
So, I mean, that thickly settled doesn't, and then just enforcement, right?
Right. But cars, there are so many drivers that ignore the flashing pedestrian sign. Now, the light is flashing, and there's kids trying to cross getting out of school. There's a lot of walkers in that area, and they're trying to cross Maple Ave, and the cars just keep barreling down the hill, and it's so dangerous that at least if they could decrease the speed limit, it might help somewhat. And then the other thing I was thinking, actually someone else suggested it to me, was that places like at the top of Old Mill Road, at both ends actually, putting signs directing people to 290, at West Main Street, and directing them to Route 9 at the top of Old Mill Road to make people aware that end up on Old Mill Road that they can go down to Route 9 instead of heading them up to the center.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe things like that. There's all these signs at the center of town now. Welcome to this district and that district. It might make sense to extend that further down so that people from out of town at least have an idea of where they're supposed to be headed,
Right.
where east and west is or whatever. I don't know. Just this is suggestions. And the other one someone else brought up to me was that they don't like that some of the curbing on Maple Ave is granite and some of it's asphalt. Why can't it all be granite and look nice? So in front of Town Hall and towards the center, it's granite. But then you get partway through the new police station and all of a sudden it turns to asphalt. And would it be dressed up more if it was all granite?
The curb itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
It's,
didn't know. I'll have to
I
pay more
never
attention.
noticed it, but
Yeah, I'll have to pay attention more at
it's
transitions.
interesting to me the suggestions that people have and what they notice. One thing that I think we should say, because even I didn't know it initially or I forgot, was that if you look at the side of the police station, the back end near where the parking is, there's a lot of brush and it looks real messy and sloppy. That's going to be finished. That's going to be treed and planted. It's just they left that to the end because that's where they accessed the trees and
Yeah,
where they stored
Yeah,
everything.
stored all the plants.
So that won't look so sloppy when everything is done.
And we're getting close.
And boy, does the parking lot look nice.
Mm-hmm.
I bet people working at Town Hall be happy when they can get some parking spaces back.
Yeah, it's been definitely a shortage for the last few months, and then most of the so the final concrete pours for the sidewalk on campus are being done today. They were being done whenever I was leaving to come here, and the topsoil is being all put in, to the new paths that go through the grove and all those things. So I think it looks great, and that of course leads us. I'm sure it's on your list. Maybe I'll steal your thunder with the dedication that's
That was
gonna
next.
happen.
Go ahead.
Okay. All
Go
right.
ahead.
Yeah, so the dedication of the station is actually going to occur on September 12th at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And there'll be a small speaking program, and that'll be the formal dedication. And then on September 21st will be a public open house where residents can get a tour of the new station. And I just invite everyone out to do that
But
because we're so proud of
4:30,
it.
that's at 4:30. But if
4:30.
you want a tour of the station, you have to pre-register,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
So people have to know that they can't just walk up there and have a tour. They have to pre-register for that. And that's for safety reasons.
Yeah, yep.
So that's exciting. And the police station is now looking more grand as the landscaping is being finished off. And people can see, and it's as nice on the inside as it is on the outside.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's not extravagant. And I remember this being a comment when the high school was done. Yes, it's grand, but it's not extravagant. It was done in the most practical ways.
Yeah. I mean, we've mentioned this as many times as we can. We have, over 60 full-time employees in the police department, and I'm sure they don't all work at the same time, but we've got to have space for that level of operations to occur,
And the way policing is today, it's different than what it used to be. So they need the space to be able to do their work. And I think people can be really proud of the station and how everything there turned out.
Yeah.
And it really does start to look more like a campus. Speaking of the campus, you still have the senior center over there that when you enter it, it needs work on the inside.
Yeah, I mean, that's another place that really hasn't had any, I don't know what the right term, remodeling, renovation.
Freshening up.
And I mean, 20 years, more than 20
Yeah.
years at this point. So
So I'm wondering, like, as they do that, would they take the carpeting out? Because to me, the carpeting just brings the whole place down as you enter. But it's I've gone in there to drop off and pick up different items, and as you go in, it's a very busy place. It's deceiving if you don't realize how much is going on in that senior center at one time. And there's people in different corners doing different things, and they've outgrown their space.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know how you prioritize what happens first, and squeaky wheel shouldn't be the one to get what needs to be done. It needs to really be like your house.
I mean, just like everything, I know the visceral reaction that it seemed like I heard rumors of whenever it was announced that Selco was considering, Boston Turnpike. I get that's a non-traditional decision, so to speak, and you can say, well, why would you take a commercial property? Why would you do this? Why would you do like? Just ask everyone, gives us the opportunity to explain, because again, like that project was on track to really, I think, be able to help us avoid like $30 million in investments, if not more. So we try to be thoughtful in how we approach these things, and the fact that we're going to buy a private property, sure, that's kind of like, whoa, what are they thinking? But we were thinking.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And speaking of that, there are a lot of open storefronts still. And I said this to a member of the select board recently, and her response was, well, we probably thank Amazon for that, because we all use Amazon and it affects their business. I think that's true to some degree. But I'm wondering, do we need, or do we already have someone in town like a recruiter to bring businesses to town to attract them?
We don't right now. Part of the role of the second assistant planner position that we brought on board within the last 2 years was to take that on, but unfortunately we've been down a planner for a lot of that time as well, so we had other turnover. And the only way that you can have as much residential and commercial growth as we've had is to have a lot of projects go through planning board and ZBA, so that staff has really been focused. So long story short, we are going to be putting out an RFP for an economic development consultant in the near future to provide some of those services. Whenever I think of vacant spaces, the Hale block in the town center automatically comes to mind.
I try not to look anymore.
But on the flip side of that, to distract, I'm just so proud of everything that's going on at Marketplace Shrewsbury at the bottom of Maple Avenue. There are 3 businesses that are currently in fit out, and that owner made an investment in their property, and it's paying off. There's no vacant spaces down there anymore, and that was a pretty underutilized, close to rundown plaza not even 3 years ago.
Right.
And it couldn't be more vibrant now.
That's true.
2 new restaurants and InMotion Fitness with personal training down there, and it looks really good. So yeah, but yeah, the town center, helping the current owners or finding another way to get that Hale block building actually up to code and operating makes me furious in some ways. There's a way to get it done and they just can't figure it out. So maybe it's time for someone else to take a shot, but we want to get that reactivated, as things move forward in the town center.
I have a resident that every time he talks to me, he brings up that he doesn't like the way Route 9 looks like a 1950s developed area, and that people need to update their businesses. So I drive down Route 9 and I look and I think, these places were just renovated.
There's
it's just
patches,
he doesn't like the style because they're not run down. They're just they don't invest in modernizing or bringing it up to date. They paint it, they give it a facelift, but they're not run down.
Right.
So I don't know what the answer is to that. And the other one is, because of the weather, there's weeds everywhere along the sides of the road.
Can't keep up this summer.
No, and the state has been plowing down weeds, especially I notice it in Northborough, on Route 9 in Shrewsbury, I've seen it. But would the state take responsibility and take care of some of the weeds along Maple Ave, because it is a state road? Or do we just fix it ourselves?
We
because
normally just fix it ourselves because we're not going to win that fight. Normally all the work that's done on Maple Avenue, we get the state's approval and do it ourselves, just because when they have interstates and major roads like Route 9 and Route 20 to deal with, that's where the investment goes, the highest traveled roadways. So Yeah, that's where we're at on that.
And Jordan Pond, the walking path, where are we at with
Things
that?
are finally moving forward with both the fishing piers and the walking path. So the fishing piers that project has made its way through local permitting approvals. So the state is moving forward with that initiative, and the same with the walking path. So excited about those projects. Excited that I have finally been able to appoint a trails committee. So we actually have a formal, for the first time, local government body dedicated to trails. We've always had the great volunteers, but they were appointed and they'll be getting their work underway. And now that we have ARPA funds in place, it's really a great time to begin developing a trail system in the community. I just want to go back to economic development, but this is going to be a teaser. So I have a really exciting opportunity for a very interesting business that's interested in coming to Shrewsbury. Very high paying jobs, a lot of jobs that I hope to be able to talk about on the next Ask the Manager about who they are and what they are.
That's
so we're working
quite a
hard.
teaser. And,
Yeah.
and would that be like in the Route 9 area or in the Route 20 area?
Yeah. We built some new buildings. Someone built some new buildings. Centec North. They're looking
Yeah.
at a spot on Centec North.
Good.
But it's a really amazing business that we hope to be able to recruit and land.
Great.
Hopefully I
So,
don't have to eat crow and not come say back.
Next
"Oh,
show.
That didn't work.
Next show. Okay. How's the old BL timeline?
So right now it's there's a late September deadline as the next deadline in court, as was set by
Oh,
the
the
judge.
court case.
Yeah.
So they can't do anything until that's all taken care of?
It wouldn't be wise.
No.
Yeah,
So
'cause
that's
they
late
appealed
September?
Yeah, they appealed the permit.
Yeah.
So
Why don't you explain that in case
yeah,
someone's
so
missed
I
it?
mean, there's 4 special permits that were needed for the redevelopment of 1 through 7 Maple Avenue for a variety of reasons, and some of the abutters have filed an appeal, which is their right to do, after the planning board issued the special permit. So that's currently in state housing court in Boston, and that's in the discovery phase. So both sides are doing things like taking depositions and sending interrogatories and things like that on questions. And in late September, both sides will be required by the court to basically submit an opinion as to whether or how the case should proceed. Should it be considered by the judge? There's enough facts for a judge to consider it on summary judgment, that either the planning board was wrong or the appeal was wrong. So we'll see what happens near the end of September. Or it'll go to trial, from that point.
So it may or may not go to trial.
Yep, that hasn't been determined fully yet.
And nothing can happen until that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's just no investor is going to spend $1 where the court may pull that back.
So does this cost the town a lot of money having to deal with this court case?
More than I'd like it to. A lot of situations like this, whenever a permit is appealed, the developer has the sole responsibility of defending the decision of the planning board because it's in their sole interest. But where this is a town property, we have a larger role in that process. So it is, we are incurring legal fees at this point to be able to.
So it's costing the town money.
It is, yep.
What's the future impact of, or financial impact of all the stormwater regulations?
It could be massive. One of the largest challenges that most Northeast communities are going to have to deal with is phosphorus levels in our open water bodies, and that comes from a number of sources. Something as simple as when the leaves fall and decompose, they release phosphorus, but then it's the main ingredient or component of fertilizer and things like that. So
no lawns and no trees along the lake and we'll be good?
I don't know, maybe if we can keep that all out of the stormwater system. I think one of the biggest challenges is the stormwater system was never designed like the sewer system where it'd go to a single point and be treated.
Oh.
And that's what I think is what the EPA wants us to do is treat the stormwater to remove those chemicals like phosphorus before it goes into the water body. But I mean, when stormwater systems were developed, it was basically to make sure there wasn't standing water on roadways and just basically get it to the lake any way you could and every place you could, versus the sewer system, which all kind of eventually makes it into a major sewer main in Route 9 and then gets treated at the treatment plant. So we'd have a lot of work to do any mechanical removal of phosphorus before it gets into our water bodies. That's a big cost.
Are the demands with the stormwater regulations reasonable demands? They are for our health.
They are for our health, but
not for our pocketbook.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's a trade-off.
It is. Yep.
You want to be healthy, you want to drink and have good water, then you got to pay.
Yep.
And when you were talking about runoff years ago, they just threw sand on the road. They didn't treat the sand.
Yep. Yep.
So something as simple as that. But so we have to remember, this is a big expense.
Absolutely.
That's what it's going to cost us to have good water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you just have to do what you have to do.
Yeah. And that, as we talked about when we set up this stormwater utility and started the stormwater fee, we're nearing the end of that first 5-year period where we get to the next step in that permit requirements. That will be looking at that phosphorus and what we have to do.
I can still see Jack Peralt when he was our town engineer with his eyes popping out as he had to deal with the original stormwater regulations and that. And I think he was happy he was retiring and didn't have to deal with a lot of it back then. And since then, it's evolved to so much more.
It is.
But people expect clean water. Well, it comes at a cost.
Yep.
So we have to do whatever it takes. There was an issue with the large trash bags.
Yeah, we had one of the manufactured runs had a quality defect, and those have hopefully all been pulled from the shelves now. And if anyone has them in their homes or opens up a roll that they bought, and if they're defective, whether it's along the seam or along the drawstring, just bring them to the town hall and we'll replace them for it. But we haven't had one of those in quite some time, knock on wood. And
whoever makes those bags, are they making them to the quality they should, other than this fluke? Are people satisfied with those bags?
Generally speaking,
depends how they try to fill them, right?
I mean, they have their weak points, and they are recycled material, and so they're sometimes of a less quality than folks would think with traditional trash bags you may buy from a major manufacturer. But we're looking at some other options, maybe tie closures versus drawstrings. Some trade-offs in the future with a different manufacturer or the same manufacturer. So.
Do you sell more large ones or small ones?
Large bags.
Really?
Yeah.
How many, do you have any idea how many you sell in a week or a month?
I know we sell about, from a dollar standpoint, we sell about $11,000 worth of bags every month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how much of that goes to the town?
100%.
Really?
Yeah, the retailers don't get any financial benefit from it.
But the bags cost us. So
they do, yeah. But the bags, so we generate about $1.3 in revenue from it, but it only costs us about $250,000 to $300,000 for the manufacturing. The rest of that money goes into covering the cost, part of the cost of the curbside collection program, which is about, it's over $2 million a year now. So
I was at a large gathering of people, and one person was complaining about the bags and the cost, and I spent whatever he spends for 5 bags or whatever, and someone said, well, wait a minute, how many do you use a week? How many do you use a month? Where I live, it costs me such and such a quarter to have mine picked up, so you've got a deal.
Yeah.
So the person was like surprised to hear that, because it feels expensive, but yet other towns are spending, it's costing the residents so much more money.
Right. I think what folks forget about is, sure, if you look at it on a bag by bag basis, when you buy that bag, it's more expensive than your major manufacturer bag, but you don't think about you're buying that major manufacturer bag and paying someone to pick it up. So you don't have that second part here.
Right.
That's what we pay for, with some of the proceeds from the sale of the bag and then some from the general tax levy.
Now, the homeless families at the motel on Route 9, how many do we have now?
It hovers around 85.
And are those people becoming town residents, or are they moving away? What happens?
It's a variety. Some of them were homeless in other parts of the state and came to Shrewsbury, and some are immigrants into the country. So maybe some will find affordable housing within Shrewsbury and jobs. And
Is there a system? I mean, they're put there, but is there a system to help them besides, feeding them clothes and diapers and so forth? Is there a system where they help them with transportation and jobs and health care and basic needs, plus even English as a second language? Is there a system in place for that?
It could be a lot better, I'll say that. Some of it, we're trying to work on. There's a system in place to help them with medical immunizations, getting through the immigration system, proper documentation, things like that. The further you get away from those core things, you think about transportation, getting to the grocery store, English language learning, that's really fallen to the town.
So should we have a team of social workers going there to help them? Or
So they have social workers that are there from the state, but we are also providing those services to students in the schools, and there's citizens volunteering to help them learn English and teach them about the immigration process. So it really is taking the whole community.
Now, I don't even have a guest, and I can't even get to all of my questions here. I have an issue with that. But an hour flew by. We have special town meeting coming up on October 16th. And what's that going to be about?
Well, it's the general budget adjustments because of what has changed, what we know now versus what we knew in the spring when we set the budget. We're considering a couple general bylaw adjustments, and that's what's on the table right now.
Time's up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully we'll have a guest.